Introduce our speaker tonight, and it's Tina Tricoche. Welcome. Tina was born in New Jersey. She moved to Florida in 2000. She attends and is affiliated with the Temple of Awareness in Largo. She reads regularly at our psychic fairs. She facilitates a Circle of Tampa Bay spiritual intellectual group. If you'd like more information about that, talk to Tina after the service. She's an author. She's published. I have a copy of her book. There are several copies in the bookstore if you're interested in purchasing one. She's going to talk about some of this information tonight. She was also published in the October Tampa Bay Wellness magazine. So she's a accomplished published author rather, and her hobbies and interests, she describes herself as a claircognizance, clairsentient, and she also channels. So please help me welcome tonight to the platform Tina Tricoche, and her topic that she's going to be talking about is, it's here somewhere, entering the vortex of the entity. So please help me welcome Tina to the platform.
Okay, so I recently came out with a book called Of the Line of Tricoche, Breaking the Power of the Entity. It is on sale today at the bookstore, $15 a book, and for every two that we sell, one book will be donated to the bookstore. A good portion of this book was channeled. A lot of it is autobiographical. I ran into a situation in 2010 where I entered a homeowner's home who was making claims that he was physically under assault, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and it caused a dissolution of his partnership with his mate. And I was called in as a legal professional. He found me at a church, but I was called to go to the house as a legal professional, and my vortex was assaulted. The homeowner was assaulted. And we think we understand a lot of these concepts, but when your vortex is personally assaulted, it takes you into a much richer, deeper level of understanding. And not just understanding, but wisdom, because wisdom gives you the ability to apply that knowledge and that understanding. And so I was compelled to apply my knowledge and my understanding when that situation occurred. So when I did this book, and I started getting into that event, I polled 12 non-metaphysical people, and I had them review a chapter of the book together in the same room. And the consensus was that the book was very deep, and it was much higher than their level of comprehension, and they needed metaphysical concepts to accompany the understanding of what happened. So if you purchase the book, it does have some concepts that I get into. A lot of those concepts came through while I was channeling. So I had to work through my way through the book slowly in a good portion of it. And so I would say this book is for the deep thinker. It's not the kind of book that you're going to flip through quickly, I don't believe, not if you're really going to get a lot out of it. And a lot of the concepts you may say, I already know that, and it's because I have tried to develop the book for people that are not just metaphysical, but also non-metaphysical, so that they can have a greater understanding of exactly what happened and how I was able to overcome the power of that entity, get my power back, and eliminate its power and control that it had over the house and the man. So there's some statements I want to make here today, and I would first ask that the cosmos gives every person in attendance your wisdom, so that it's not just head knowledge, but it's also what you hear today is also going to be heart knowledge and solar plex knowledge, so that you can take whatever knowledge you've already came with or whatever knowledge you're being freshly introduced today to a deeper level. All evil must exist, but only as a possibility. And I think a lot of the people that are coming from the religious frequencies have a hard time understanding that part, that it only has to exist as a possibility. It's a part of every frequency. We can see it in every area of life. We can see the manifestation of evil. Our forefathers had to explain a lot of the contrast through terms of good and evil. And what has happened is over time, we've seen such tremendous manifestations that validate the truth and reality of the evil concept. But we are now that we have entered into the age of Aquarius, are understanding our power as deliberate creators and the power of thought, because manifestations come off of the heels of thought future manifestations come off the heels of thought that we have today. So as we understand that, we can alter the kind of thoughts that we're navigating and choosing to employ to get better manifestations in, not just for our own personal life, but for all that is. And that's really at the cusp of why we're here as humans, is to create and to cause expansion for all that is. So that our understanding of our ability to deliberately create is becoming more and more and more important as we are expanding our consciousness. So when you understand that it only has to exist as a possibility, you can start posting a different explanation to phenomena, and then it will no longer have power and rights, because the power and the rights that it has can only come from you contributing attention to it and belief in it. Once you take that from it, it no longer has power. It has to have your validity. It has to have validity of co-creators to harness the powers that we're seeing and the breaking of natural law that we've been seeing in modern time. We're seeing entities that are overcrossing boundaries that should not be. Objects should not be moving in a house. That just should not be happening. This is not their domain. So that is a breaking of natural law, and it can only happen because humans are assigning it that power through belief. Okay? And what happened to me, if something like that happens to you, then it becomes significant. You understand how significant it is that we understand that, and not just some spook story and, oh, this thing was moving things in the house and leaving marks on the man's body, and as though we have no power over that. We do have power over that when we start deliberately changing our thought and assuming authority. When I was young, I used to have night terrors. This shadow used to chase me, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be traumatized. And this led into my 20s. And then one day I got smart, and I'm like, no more. I'm taking my power back. So in my dream, when this thing was assaulting me, I conjured up a battle axe and I started chasing it. Now, mind you, this thing is huge and I'm little, but as I'm moving in through this thing and overcoming my fears and just going straight into my fears and not worrying about the outcome, my magnitude started increasing. And then eventually I became the giant, and that thing became small, and that thing became afraid. And I conquered it one night in one of those dreams, and it never came back. I destroyed its power in that dream. But I had to understand that my authority, the power of light, that authority is greater. We've been giving so much credit to the side of evil than they were ever due. They're never, ever due the kind of credit that we've been giving them. And that's the only reason why a lot of the manifestations that we're seeing is occurring. So, again, I want to give the statement. Evil must exist, but only as a possibility. And if you're really on a higher frequency, you're going to understand that, and you're going to start deliberately employing a different thought and seeing yourself as the big giant, seeing the light as the one with the power. And it doesn't require fighting. It doesn't require shouting. It really doesn't require a whole lot of tools unless you assign the tools the power. All it requires is the self-alignment. Lining up with yourself and understanding that the light is the final and highest authority over anything. Okay? So what we give attention to, we give power to, and our truth must validate itself. So if you understand that your truth must validate itself, one way or another, our truth is going to validate itself. We're going to always see evidence in support of it. Then when you see something, evidence of something that is not in the well-being of you or your society or all that is, start changing it. And no, it's going to take more than just changing your thought one time. We have to create a dominant thought, which is we got to keep practicing the new thought. Then it becomes a part of the molecular changes, the quantum changes. That's when the signal goes out, and then the future manifestations come in on that. So sometimes we have to keep practicing it, fake it till you make it, and you will see adjustment. Imagination fuses with belief and believes itself to be that essence. Okay. Imagination fuses with belief and believes itself to be that essence. Metaphysical people know this so well. We are such masters at creating through the realm of imagination. We are so masterful in that. So be mindful of that when something is overstepping natural law and you see someone that's being assaulted. This situation, the thing had paralyzed me and the dog and was physically assaulting the man, where he was cringing over and crying out, screaming in agony. And the thing was trying to lift me and throw me. And so I had to inform this thing that it no longer had the authority to do that over the house. And I had to stick to my guns, because the more I said this thing to it, both with my mouth and in my mind, the more angry it became and the more it assaulted the gentleman. And so I had to not put my attention on that evidence and put my attention on the truth that the light is the final and highest authority. I don't ever have to give any negative thing like that more power than it's deserving of. And when you understand that, you're the giant, you're the one with the authority, and then eventually that thing no longer had to release the control over him and the dog and me. I got my movement back. I started blessing the house by proclaiming the light and angels in every room. And that thing never ever was able to reclaim its power over that house. Okay? So this was a very deep event that happened. I didn't like talking about it for the longest time. And then I reached a plateau where I'm like, this is information that needs to be shared. It's not just a spook story. It's information that a lot of people are ready now. They're ready to be armed with that information, because we need changes in our society. Okay? There's no death of consciousness, only transition. So you're not going to get rid of it. You're not going to undo the evolution that it has been that it's creating. But you can convert it. You can cause a transmutation of it into a better reality, a better role. You can help propel that. So don't try and consign these things to a hell, because you're not doing a service to all that is by doing that. You want to consign it to a better role, to a role within the light. It's entitled to that. These things that get trapped in that role is because co-creators in the human domain created that for it, and it wants to be free of it. So if you're ever given the opportunity, put it in a better role. Put it in the role of a light. Set it free from that. But you can't undo its evolution, but it can be applied in a better way. Now, I want to share a little bit about miracle worker. Miracle workers are being established throughout the planet at this time. There is an awakening that is occurring wherein people are remembering or realizing that the power to produce miracles and change lies within at its inner being. That is where the divine power generates and produces itself. It has long been felt the connection to our source lies at the crown center. But I say to you, the highest connective power, the universal power, lies within the solar plexus. The crown is there to serve the self, both the lower and the higher. It ties in with thought and reason because it is connected at the brain center, and thought divides. Each lower self has a mastery it's undergoing. Each higher self has multiple masteries it has or attempted to undergo and is presently undergoing through its present lower seat. Each lower expansion is unique, distinctive, and impacts the evolution of the higher realms. Because the crown is located at the brain center, the center of thought, which divides, some are very certain that their higher truth or their hearing is from God, and so they are so certain of this feeling and the subsequent manifestations that they enter into this belief that their truth is the only real truth. And they say, but I feel it is so, so I know it is so. But I say to you, the universal and highest truth lies in the solar plexus, where there is no dispensing of words and no division. You are driven by instinct and not by thought. It is the dispensing of instinct, understanding, and inner knowing. Words and language create limitations because a word and its language are forms of limitation. And while the solar plexus is indeed a place for discerning what is right or wrong for you, it is not a place for judgment casting. That is the job of thought, which is to push expansion through contrast, desire, and storytelling. If you make a request out or send an instruction out, you're actually submitting it to your solar plexus. You're submitting it inward, not outward. The power lies within. If the answer that returns comes in through your solar plexus that it is granted, it is your responsibility to not cancel your own assignment out by casting doubt into and over it. People are the instrument, the creator, the caster, the receiver. Miracle workers are being established at this time under every religious frequency, both the major and the minors. They will be found dispensed through the broken medical system. They will be found among the atheists and the agnostic who believe man alone is solely responsible for his own miracle. They will be found among the wealthy and the poor, the high and the humble, the educated and the simpleton. They will be birthed out of the unpopular or nonconformity so that they may learn how to stand alone. They will have been trained in the field of misunderstandings, struggle, rejection, abandonment, and exclusion in order to learn how to manage the emotionality scale as an instrument of his or her friendship, not foe, in order to learn how to harness self-belief and self-love. They will train their capabilities from within the silence of shadows in order to protect their field from the negative and doubt castings, no matter how well-intended, of others, until such time as their field of miracles becomes a powerful, dominant, creative force, and then those beings no longer have any power over them. Do not assault the ego of the miracle worker. It is for them to determine their own relationship with their own sense of awesomeness. We have to allow the miracle to push its way in. It requires man to acknowledge the power of the inner being in all humans and honor the notion that this inner being is fully capable of handling the journey of the individual in which it occupies. It never casts doubt into us, nor judgment, nor finger pointing. Rather, it spreads awareness so that the self can expand as it is ready, in its time, and until such time that is right for that individual. You do not know what has transpired in former lives, the evolution of that self. You do not know what that self has been subjected to or mastering in this present life, nor the direction that self is moving in. You can only know your own path. Do not assault the ego of the miracle worker, because each is occupying the seat of the human, and all under the contract of contrast and imperfection and individual masteries. Honor this and let that miracle push its way through. That miracle worker may not be in your frequency. It may not be your miracle worker, but it belongs in a pocket somewhere. It is needed somewhere. So if someone says, I can, hold that vibration in honor, and that honor will return itself back unto you. God bless you.